Let go of any worries and stress. It's all just fucking bullshit.
For over 500 days, I've been meditating every single day, and doing so has had a profound effect on my mood, my focus, and my overall mental well-being. So in this video, I thought I'd show you exactly what I learned and how you guys can do the same. So meditation's one of those things that looks a little woo-woo. Like, it's hard to believe that just breathing slowly, sitting still, and observing our thoughts can have any impact on our internal state. But I found it to be a genuinely super powerful tool for controlling our mental and physical health, and there are literally thousands of studies to back this up. There's actually this really cool study from Japan that looked at people's ability to focus depending on their meditation experience. So there are two groups of people, one group who had never meditated before, and another group of meditators who were like seasoned meditators. They have hundreds if not thousands of hours of meditation under their belt. They made both groups listen to the same noise 20 times in a row and used brain imaging to see what was going on. And guess what? The expert meditators had no problem focusing on all 20 tones that were played to them, whereas the non-meditators lost focus after about the 10th or the 11th tone. So there's clearly some evidence that meditation improves focus. And the increased focus we get from meditation also seems to increase our overall levels of happiness. In fact, there's this great study that followed over 2,200 people and messaged them at random points throughout the study to ask them how they were feeling. And it was found that people whose mind were wandering was less happy than those who were actually focused on a specific task, regardless of what that task actually was. So having the ability to stay focused and fully immerse ourselves in what we're doing seems to be a key ingredient for happiness. I can certainly say for myself that I think my mood has improved since I've started meditating, and I also think I've got much better emotional control too. You see, meditation has helped me to realise that the thoughts and emotions in my head are fleeting. They come and go like passing clouds in the sky. So this understanding has helped me to detach a bit, not getting caught up in the immediate influence of these emotions. For example, if I'm ever feeling frustrated about something, instead of overreacting or getting overwhelmed by that thing, I just create a little bit of space between the emotion and the response. I just observe the physical sensations that come with the emotion, I acknowledge it, and I just wait for it to pass. I just don't let the physical sensations of negative emotions influence my mental state, and that's all thanks to starting a regular meditation practice. So with that in mind, how do we maximize the brain-enhancing effects of meditation? Well, there are really three key components we need to be aware of. Firstly, our perception, secondly, our pattern of breathing, and thirdly, the disassociation continuum. So firstly, our perception. Now, we sense things in and on our body literally all the time. Like, we can hear the sound of the TV, we can feel the pressure as we sit down on a particular surface, we can smell stuff coming from the kitchen, and so on and so forth. But we don't actually perceive any of these things until we put our attention onto them. Think of it like having spotlights of perception. We can't focus this spotlight on everything at once because, let's face it, that would be super overwhelming. Instead, we have to focus this spotlight on one or two sensations at a time. For instance, we can zoom in on the tiniest details like a tingling in our big toe, or we can build a broader picture thinking about our entire foot or our entire body. But we just cannot perceive all of these sensations inside and out of our body at the same time. Which leads me on nicely to the interoception-exteroception continuum. So within the word perception, there's an entire continuum, with interoception on the one end and exteroception on the other end. And when I talk about interoception, all I really mean is all the feelings and sensations we have inside of our body. So whether we feel hot or cold, whether we feel hungry, how fast our heart is beating and stuff like that. And then exteroception then is everything happening on the outside of our body, so the things that we perceive in the world around us. So for example, when we meditate with our eyes closed, which is a very popular form of meditation, we are cutting off a major sensory input, i.e. the visual input, which means that our perceptual spotlight focuses on interoception. In other words, we become acutely aware of what's happening inside of our body. If we want to get super technical about all of this, the anterior cingulate cortex and the insular, which are just two brain areas, kick up their activity levels, which means we become super aware of our internal sensations. Now, here's the thing, neither interoception nor exteroception is a bad thing. They both have their place in a good meditation practice. For example, while heightened levels of interoceptive awareness may sound like a good idea, it isn't always beneficial. For instance, many people with heightened levels of anxiety are just very aware of their internal states. In other words, their high levels of interoceptive awareness means that they're constantly thinking about how they feel when they're talking to someone else, which means it makes it very difficult for them to communicate their ideas effectively and coherently. But having no interoceptive awareness isn't really that great either. If we just ignore the fact that our chest is in pain or our blood pressure is increasing or things like that, then we're going to struggle to detect and respond to potential health issues. So when it comes to deciding what meditation practice we want to do, we have a choice between deciding whether we want to do a practice which involves greater interoceptive awareness or one that involves greater exteroceptive awareness. And you can decide which of these two meditation practices you do by asking yourself a question. Am I someone who's very aware of my bodily sensations or not? If you are someone who's very aware of your bodily sensations, then it makes more sense to do an exteroceptive practice. Whereas if you're someone who isn't very aware of your bodily sensations, then maybe focus on interoceptive meditation. When it comes to breathing during meditation, most people recommend to keep things relatively slow. And this could be in the form of cyclic breathing, so that's when we breathe in and out. Just normal breathing. It could be in the form of double inhales, so that's where we do one long inhale, then a sharp inhale before exhaling, so it'd be like... Or it could be in the form of box breathing, where each phase of the breathing process is exactly the same length. So the inhale, the hold, and the exhale are all of the exact same duration. Now, the cool thing about controlling our breathing rate is that this helps to nudge us into an interoceptive state. In other words, as I explained earlier, it helps to focus our attention inwards. But if you're someone who's already quite interoceptively aware, i.e. you're someone who's quite caught up in your own head, then it doesn't make sense to worry about your pattern of breathing. Like, forget about how you're meant to be breathing and just focus your attention outwards. Having said that, it's still well worth asking yourself the question, what do I actually want to achieve from this meditation practice? For instance, do you want to finish the meditation feeling more alert or more relaxed? Because one of the best ways to control that feeling is through the way that we breathe. For example, when we're breathing for relaxation, we should make our exhales longer and more vigorous than our inhales. Whereas if we are breathing for alertness, then the opposite is true. We should make our inhales longer and more vigorous than our exhales. And if that doesn't really make any sense to you guys, then I do have a video somewhere over here which explains the science behind breathing and how we can use breathing to live a happier and healthier life. The third component we need to be aware of is something known as the disassociation continuum. So it turns out that interoception is also on this continuum with something known as disassociation. Basically, while interoceptive awareness is all about being aware of what's happening on our body and within our body, disassociation is all about having a complete lack of bodily awareness. This is something that's often experienced by people who've gone through some kind of trauma, where they disconnect from their emotions and then they go through the motions without really feeling connected to their physical selves. So here's the thing, we kind of want to be somewhere in the middle of this continuum too. It's a bit like Goldilocks trying to find the just right porridge. Like, we don't want to be absolutely disassociated with life, such that we just have no emotions whatsoever, but we don't want to be so interoceptively aware that we get overwhelmed by all the sensations happening in our body. So with these three components in mind, what is the best way for us to meditate? The key really is to use a meditation practice that works against our default state. So if we're someone who's more interoceptively dominant, i.e. that's someone who's quite internally aware, then we should focus on a meditation practice that's exteroceptive. Whereas if we're more exteroceptively dominant, that is someone who's quite aware of our surroundings and outside state, then we should focus on a practice that's more interoceptive. For example, if you're walking down the street or you're in some kind of crowded space and you're starting to feel overwhelmed, then that's the perfect time to do an interoceptive meditation practice. Whereas if you're getting completely caught up in your head, you keep overthinking a certain thought, or you can't stop cringing about a meeting you were just in, then that's the perfect time to do an exteroceptive meditation practice. In both cases then, we're just pushing against our default state. So what does an interoceptive and exteroceptive meditation practice look like? To begin an interoceptive meditation, find a quiet and comfortable space where you can sit or lie down, close your eyes and bring your attention to your breath, observing the natural rhythm of inhalation and exhalation. Or you can try a slightly more complex breathing practice like cyclic sighs and box breathing. As you settle into the practice, you gently redirect your awareness to the sensations within your body and try to notice any areas of tension, warmth, coolness or discomfort. And without judgment or attachment, simply observe these sensations as they arise and pass away. If distracting thoughts do arise, gently acknowledge them and then bring your focus back to the sensations within your body, allowing yourself to fully experience these sensations without trying to change them or overanalyze them. To meditate exteroceptively, on the other hand, you should find a comfy spot where you can sit or stand with an open posture. and after taking a few deep breaths to center yourself in the present moment, you can open your eyes and simply gaze at your surroundings without fixating on anything specific. Just let your attention expand and soak in the visual details of your environment, noticing things like the interplay of light and shadows, the vibrant colours, and the shapes around you. You can also try to tune into sounds, embracing both the nearby and distant noises, engage your sense of smell, and, if it's appropriate, explore the textures or sensations of surfaces you can touch. And that's pretty much it. Once we've found the meditation practice that works best for us, we just need to focus on being consistent. There is actually no fixed amount of time for which we should be meditating for, but if you do want a concrete number, there's a really fascinating study done by Dr. Wendy Suzuki, I believe her name was, who found that just 13 minutes of daily meditation was enough to improve cognitive performance, mood, memory, and attention. But if you can only manage like 3 minutes, then that's absolutely fine. Just stick with it and you'll see plenty of progress.